It's another packed convention center. They have come to hear him speak, hanging on his every word.
I was intimidated putting on the computer.
He is the Canadian who will always be known as Captain Kirk.
It was crazy.
This is the filmography of William Shatner, going where no actor has gone before. Kansas City, April 2002. Star Trek fans have paid $200 each to meet William Shatner, get his autograph, and hear him talk about his career as Captain James Tiberius Kirk. It is the role that stands out above all others in a career that spans over half a century. But there is much more to William Shatner than his connection to Star Trek, his love of horses, his commitment to charity, and his impact on Hollywood.
I've always been a big fan of Bill Shatner's, and in fact, he was very influential when I was a kid about making me think about acting as a career.
William Shatner was born March 22nd, 1931 in Montreal, Quebec. His father, Joseph, owned a garment company. His mother, Anne, was a housewife, in charge of raising William and his two sisters, Joy and Farla. Bill got his first taste of acting at summer camp outside Montreal in the Laurentian Mountains. Bill liked being on stage and continued acting in school plays right through high school. As the only boy in the family, Bill was supposed to take over the family business. So after high school, he enrolled in the commerce program at McGill University. While in university, Shatner continued to act and got a part-time job in broadcasting, working with another up-and-coming young Canadian, Christopher Plummer.
We grew up together on television, radio in Montreal, in French and English. He was playing, his French is even worse than mine, but we both were employed on the French network as well as the English network.
Bill graduated from McGill in 1952 with a Bachelor of Commerce degree. He took a job as assistant manager of the Mountain Playhouse in Montreal. But he didn't like the business side of show business. He wanted to be an actor and decided to pursue his dream. Shatner moved to Ottawa and joined the Canadian Repertory Theatre. There he was spotted by Tyrone Guthrie, the founding artistic director of the Stratford Festival. At Stratford, Bill met up with his former broadcasting buddy Christopher Plummer and another unknown actor, Don Herron.
Oh God, we got a lot of very famous people came out of Stratford in those early days.
There were a kind of rash of young actors. They're called juveniles, and Bill was one of them. I'd heard about him. Bill was a perfect juvenile. He was good looking and pleasant voice and a nice light sense of comedy.
So many of us came out of Stratford that there was a training that took place in Canada that was unlike any place else in North America. And so the Canadian actors came to America to seek fame and fortune, had an aspect to their abilities that the American actor didn't have.
While he was at Stratford, their production of Tamburlaine was picked up for a short run on Broadway. In New York, a 20th Century Fox talent scout spotted something special in Shatner. The scout offered him a 7-year, $500 a week contract. Even though he was a starving actor, Bill said no. He didn't think the deal would be his big break. Shatner returned to Canada to work on a television play in Toronto. The play co-starred an actress named Gloria Kane.
I thought she was quite gorgeous, and I obviously built it too, because the final close-up is he kissed her, and the camera pulls away and into the credits. But the camera decided not to pull away this time, and they found Bill Shatner with his tongue highly visible down this young lady's throat. I guess the cameraman had a sense of humor.
The two fell in love and were married in 1956. Bill was about to get very busy at work and at home. In 1957, William Shatner headed back to the U.S. and made his feature film debut in The Brothers Karamazov starring Yul Brynner. The movie meant exposure for Bill and landed him the role of a white supremacist in Roger Corman's 1961 picture, The Intruder.
He gave a wonderful performance as a rabble-rouser in the South at the time of integration. He won a number of film festivals as Best Actor. Matter of fact, the film did not make money, but we won some film festivals. And I remember Bill telling me he won more times for Best Actor than I won for Best Director.
Shatner was busy at work and at home. He and Gloria had 3 children, all daughters, by 1964. That same year, Paramount produced a sci-fi pilot created by Gene Roddenberry. It starred Jeffrey Hunter as the captain of a spaceship going where no man had gone before. Studio executives shot down the pilot as being too far out. The next year, the pilot for Star Trek was reshot, this time with William Shatner as Captain James Tiberius Kirk at the helm of the USS Enterprise.
I was very nervous about it because I had a decent career going as an actor. I wasn't extremely well known, but I was making a living doing decent work and dignified work, and I thought this could make you seem very silly, putting on a pair of pointed ears, you know. And I thought, gee, I'd just be lucky if I just get a year, you know. That was a year of steady money. That's the way I think that most of us looked at it, you know. We thought, gee, we're damn lucky to get 3 out of it.
Nobody else would listen to me. I kept saying to these guys, don't you understand, as we're making this pilot, 20 years from now we're going to make these movies, and nobody believed me. And I struggled. I was like, it's going to be a great series. You know.
Bill was perfect for the part. I mean, that is the role of his career, and he was very good.
Star Trek was a qualified success. It never cracked the top 50 in the ratings, but Captain Kirk and his crew were wildly popular with their fans.
I had the first non-stereotypical role in television. And I had that, and the world was seeing us as we should be seen for the first time on an equal basis.
Star Trek is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some people see them just the romance, escapist adventures. Some people see the scientific futurism of it and enjoy that.
I had a lot of moments with Kirk. He could sit down and he could tell me what's wrong, you know, that sort of thing. And I had the other thing with Leonard, so I was kind of a catalyst in the middle of these 2 guys.
He's a classic hero, having to put in a dilemma, having to make decisions. Frequently gets the girl, has to fight the villain. I mean, there are classical elements here that we know about. It's a fun character to play.
Despite the loyalty of millions of Trekkies, Star Trek was canceled after just 3 seasons. Shatner was out of a job, and his troubles were just beginning. Star Trek was canceled in 1969, the same year Bill's wife Gloria divorced him. His steady job and family were gone. He would have to start all over again.
I understand that his first wife got the best settlement in the history of Hollywood. Somebody said Bill couldn't even afford underwear when she finished with him.
Shatner starred in a string of made-for-TV movies in the early 70s, and then made a return to Star Trek with his voice. Paramount brought back the show as an animated series in 1973. Bill was glad to be back as Captain Kirk, and the captain was about to make an even bigger comeback. In the late 70s, Shatner was approached with a script for a major motion picture. 10 years after Paramount had canceled Star Trek, the TV series, it was ready to make Star Trek, the motion picture.
Analysis, Mr. Spock.
Alien weapon is a form of plasma energy, Captain. Exact
10 years, 7, 8 years later, they come along and say, let's make this big film. On the one hand, how could you say no? I mean, really, here was this Robert Wise, Academy Award-winning director, is asking you to play a lead in a large film. I really couldn't say no.
Somebody had put it to me very simply. They said, this is a group of people who have respect for each other, who have loyalty to each other, who are professionals and work well together solving problems, and people enjoy seeing that.
Engineering status report. Systems over.
There was an important new member on the Starship Enterprise. One of the extras was Bill's new wife, Marcy Lafferty. The first Star Trek movie was a major success, and the sequels followed.
The cosmos is our oyster now. The ending of this film posits almost any story within a Star Trek framework imaginable.
The first one was supposed to be the only Star Trek movie. That's why it was titled Star Trek The Motion Picture. When that made a ton of money, they started talking about one sequel, but only one, and that was going to be the last one. So final that Spock was killed off. And you know, you can't have Star Trek without Spock.
Leonard Nimoy picked up directing duties for numbers 3 and 4, but for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, he handed the director's chair over to Shatner.
I think my passion is directing at something I'm acting at, so I don't have to let any of it go. I want it all. And so the greedy me is, I think that's the best of all possible worlds.
Oh, it's better. It's easier. It's more relaxed for me. It's more restful. It's better. I came to the picture looking forward to being an actor. Not having to take on the responsibility of pushing around this $30 million production.
As I worked on the film and as I pleased myself from individual moment to the large moments, from the word to the sentence to the paragraph to the scene to the final edited film, this film I liked.
Enterprise, are you ready? In fire position. Torpedo armed.
But Captain, we're firing directly on your position.
Send it down, Mr. Takeoff, now!
I suppose every actor sat back and said, gee, I wonder why he did it that way, or I would have done it this way. It did seem strange to have another actor telling you. And so, of course, we all know our characters so well that we generally know what we're going to do.
I've enjoyed this experience and would love to see Star Trek go on. It's in the hands of the Paramount executives, and I just can't imagine them not being Star Trek 6.
After directing and starring in The Final Frontier, Shatner stuck to acting for Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. The movie co-starred his old stage and broadcasting colleague, Christopher Plummer.
Cry havoc! And let's slip the dogs of war!
There are many Canadians working on Star Trek. Chris Plummer, Kim Cattrall, and Jimmy Doohan.
I always felt like a kid on the set, that I sort of got into my television set, and here I was sitting there when all these characters were around me, and it wasn't really for real. And sometimes during a rehearsal process, and sometimes even during a take, I would look around at especially William Shatner. Some of his delivery lines are just, no one can do them like he does them.
I think that's what our audiences enjoy so much about Star Trek, is that we have been able to deal with these subjects in a provocative way over the last 25 years.
The Undiscovered Country was the last journey for the original crew of the Enterprise. While they said goodbye, Captain Kirk would be back.
Typecasting doesn't cross my mind, even though it may be a factor. I just blunder on, you know.
So it's me you want, you Klingon bastards. What are you waiting for?
Along with the Star Trek movies, Bill's career had blossomed in other ways. He was back on television, this time as a cop in T.J. Hooker, and as the host of Rescue 911. He was also writing his first novel, a sci-fi thriller titled Tech War. The book was a bestseller and became a made-for-TV movie. A series of tech war books and TV specials followed.
I've got a lot of things going this year. There's books out, Star Trek memories, movie memories, and tech power. The sixth of the tech war is out there. Rescue 911 is going on. There are movies to be made. There's a Star Trek conference call between Patrick Stewart and me and 4,000 people in each time zone. It goes on and on. A lot of things happening that don't seem to be in the image of Captain Kirk.
Business was booming, but Bill's personal life was once again on the rocks. He and Marcy Lafferty divorced. In 1994, Paramount Pictures made another call to William Shatner. They wanted him back for another Star Trek movie, this time to pass the torch to the next generation.
I didn't really replace William Shatner as captain of the Enterprise because when I became captain of the Enterprise D, Bill Shatner was still Captain Kirk of the Enterprise, one of the other ones, with another letter attached to it.
There's a wonderful story that is told about the difference in Kirk and Picard, and that is if I had to drop on you with a gun, and I said to you, as Kirk, I said to you, I'm going to give you 3, or else I'll fire if you don't drop your gun. And so Kirk would say, 1, 2, bang. And Picard would say, I'm going to give you 3. 1, 2, 2.5. What's the name of that planet? Viridian 3?
Yes.
I take it the odds are against us and the situation is grim.
Well, he got along well with me because I'm easy to get along with. He's difficult to get along with. But I am such a sympathetic and understanding and warm and loving and affectionate human being that I somehow made it work.
These are the people I grew up with, they're the people that, when I was very young, it was like my brother and I would sit down there and look at these people, and wow, isn't that great? Isn't that fantastic? We weren't as obsessed as some people get about it, but it was an interesting thing to go through, 30 years or whatever the case, and then you're sitting on the set.
Star Trek had made Shatner an international icon, with fans around the world worshiping him and the show. The bizarre influence of Star Trek was the focus of the 1997 documentary, Trekkies.
Welcome to Starbase Dental.
So, this is reception.
This is where the patients check in.
It's not like any other dentist office I've ever been in.
Shatner hasn't always impressed Star Trek fans. A Saturday Night Live skit he did poked fun at Trekkies and helped inspire a book he co-wrote titled Get a Life.
The real point is there is no answer, is there? I mean, what is the answer? Everybody has their own answer.
1997 also meant a new relationship for Bill. He and former model Noreen Kidd were married, but their life together would come to a tragic end. Noreen Shatner drowned in their LA home swimming pool in 1999. She had been drinking and had been battling alcoholism for years. Bill decided to honor his wife's memory by helping other women fight their addictions. He helped start the Noreen Shatner Foundation and the Noreen Shatner Friendly House, a residence in LA for women recovering from alcoholism. Bill was now ready to throw himself back into his work and his favorite hobby, riding and raising horses. His love of horses would also bring him a new romance.
What is the one most important thing our society needs?
In 2000, William Shatner took a part in Sandra Bullock's comedy Miss Congeniality. Bill played the host of a beauty pageant and surprised the rest of the cast with his comic ability.
He was unbelievable. I mean, I didn't know that Bill Shatner was so funny. And, actually, he was great. He was very funny to be with, and he's such an icon.
I've had the most delightful time. I discovered that Sandra Bullock is every bit as delightful as she is on screen, and I found her extraordinarily delightful on screen. You want to eat her with a spoon. She's so loving and lovely.
And Bill impressed the people at the Real Miss America organization. They made him the host of their pageant that same year.
You
In 2002, life imitated art again for Bill. In Showtime, he was cast as himself, training police officers Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro for television producer Rene Russo.
Oh! You throw your body! Oh!
I did a scene with him, first scene. First thing out of his mouth, I laughed. I laughed out loud, and we had to do it again. That's how funny he was.
It's a riotous comedy by two gifted comedians and a female comedian, Rene Russo, carrying the load and making us laugh, and it's going to be a good time.
Many actors have been influenced by Shatner. Jason Alexander grew up glued to Star Trek, and through a bizarre birthday wish, met the man who inspired him to be an actor.
I've always been a big fan of Bill Shatner's, and in fact, he was very influential when I was a kid about making me think about acting as a career. And he was given to me as a birthday present some years ago. We met for the first time, and we talked about having potentially the greatest success or the biggest success of your life at a relatively young age, and how he had spent many, many years rather embittered by that and trying to reject the whole Star Trek phenomena and was encouraging me to not go through that with Seinfeld.
And Shatner's unique delivery is often parodied by comedians like Kevin Pollak.
I went to Gene one day and I said, Gene, I have an idea. I beat up Spock. I can take him. I can take Leonard. He's a wuss.
While he continues to work in front of the camera, Bill is now most comfortable with his horses and with his fourth wife, Elizabeth Martin. Most people don't know this side of William Shatner, the cowboy at heart.
I grew up in Montreal, and there was a rental stable nearby where I grew up, and I used to muck out stables to get a horse, but that was not long-lived, and I had to wait till I got into movies, where I had to learn to ride horses in movies.
Shatner raises American quarter horses on his farm in Kentucky and rides in competitions. It's also how he met his wife, Elizabeth. She's an experienced horse trainer. Bill has taken his love of horses and used it to help children in Los Angeles. This is the Hollywood Charity Horse Show. Bill started the event in 1990 to help two local charities, Ahead with Horses and LA's Best. Ahead with Horses uses riding as physical therapy for children with disabilities. LA's Best runs after-school programs for kids whose parents can't be home when they are.
These are children from LA's Best and from Ahead with Horses, and the thrill of raising money for these kids is equaled by watching these kids spend the afternoon here, and then they're going to go into the big auditorium where they'll be entertained with horses.
Every year, Shatner spends an afternoon with hundreds of the children he helps, and then puts on a riding exhibition and Western dinner for the who's who of Hollywood. From the captain of a starship to a cowboy riding tall in the saddle, William Shatner has made his mark on Hollywood, and he's still making it.
Bill Shatner is one of the finest actors in the world. I think people recognize him as a good actor, but he's been identified so much with Star Trek, they're not aware of the other things he's done.